Look into that camera and ask him a question.
Abhishek, let me ask you a trick question. Let me say first of all that this budget is not a political budget. So a lot of the people in this room are heaving a sigh of relief. But is it because your previous finance minister had presented such a self-destructive budget last year that it left no scope for his successor to do anything? Because nearly 1 lakh crore were estimated that was not available as income last year. Foreign investors were driven away.
GDP growth was
overestimated. CAD was underestimated. You know, I don't think India had seen such a fudge in the name of a budget since the reform. So is there some regret in your party that it allowed, or in your government, that it allowed such an atrocity to happen last year? And then gar and drive this out, drive that out, unleash the taxman, raids, illegal wiretappings. Is there any introspection in your party?
Shekhar, let me start by complimenting you at an excellent attempt to be a modern day Narad Muni. Secondly, let me say that you might it's a very, I'm complimenting you. You must take it as a compliment. Equally, you have been a very astute player of the diversion tactic discussing budget 2013, which normally I thought runs from 13 to 14. You want to discuss 12 to 13. But I've also got some experience. I'm not going to fall into a trap. I can only say a good budget this year is not a binary situation of a bad budget last year. I think there is no such equation. Just look at this budget. This budget has, I think, quite remarkably, of course you can discount the fact that I speak for the Congress party, but I am trying to be as objective as possible. It has a very comprehensive speech touching every nook and cranny of the economy. It has managed to have a very good focus on infrastructure and investment, which are needed very badly, and I don't want to go into details, but all those things which she has said, including about the industrial corridors and other things. And yet, a very significant increase in almost every social sector, no diminution in major flagship programs, and yet we are down to 5.2, and next year hopefully 4.8. So I think it's fairly creditable. But there is a clear approach of focus on growth. There is no populism here in the sense that I don't consider a government which declares as its identity certain programs like Manrega or food security or loan waiver. These are not populist things. This is, we take the political risk, we stand up, we take a bullet, we say we have this as our identity, we'll push it through. But otherwise there is nothing which you can use the word populism in an election year. It's very prudent, it's very balanced. And I think on certainty and stability and continuity.
Sorry to interrupt. I think some of the things you said, Arun Shourie didn't quite agree with earlier on. So I'll comment from Arun Shourie and then ask him a question.
Abhishek, sir, I always hesitate to ask lawyers questions. Lawyers defending lawyers.
Can't win. Yes.
But sir, precisely because of Shekhar's point that we are a growing economy, etc. Precisely at such a time, what we needed was a policy-oriented, policy enunciation budget rather than an accountant's budget with a dhobi list of the same kind like any other budget. And I feel that I personally have strongly supported the initiatives that Mr. Chidambaram and the government has taken since September. And I would have looked forward precisely to those kinds of steps being the hallmarks of this particular budget in this way, whether it's on user charges or anything else, and on statements which would reassure industry that arbitrariness is being scotched, that uncertainty is being removed. Because while we have Mr. Chidambaram saying all this, you know that notices are going to Vodafone. Investors are looking at that. I think there's a notice has gone to Shell. I am told that a notice has got ready for Nokia. So isn't that going to have an effect? It's from the same ministry. So a much more policy-oriented, reassuring policy statement would have been required. Second, I feel that the crucial thing to watch would be what Mr. Chidambaram mentioned, and it has been touted a lot on this cabinet committee on investment, that this will now, but you know, already its appellate powers have been taken away. It's now just a consulting mechanism, mechanism for exchange. It's yet another committee. In previous budgets of Chidambaram, he has already set up not one but 2 committees to expedite clearances and execution of projects. And they've not had meetings. They are headed by the Prime Minister, located in the Prime Minister's office. So please.
In fact, that was a bit of an issue with this budget. A lot of committees, we're going to set up commissions, we're going to set up institutions.
What we have not mentioned at all is that he said that the management of the current account deficit is an even more challenge. Is even greater challenge. And the critical point there is not just gold imports and silver imports, on which really nothing has been done. We've been promised these indexed bonds
incentives,
and so on. Yes,
which was a good thing, to incentives for other types of savings.
Well, doesn't require rocket science. After all, to allow gold imports to increase by 40% in 1 year is actually to accept a no confidence vote in my own policies. But the other point really, Pranay, is the dependence of India now on external commercial borrowing and on very short-term financial institutional investors, for whom 3 months is a long term. That has really ballooned, that has swollen up in such a way that everybody is alarmed about this, and we would have hoped that to shift from there to FDI as a way of meeting our capital account would have been much more, a much greater point of focus.
Right.
All that we have had on that is one point, and that is on the definition of FDI and FII, whether it will be 10% stake or not, or less than 10% stake. So I would think we should reflect on this fact. Contrary to what Shekhar was saying, we should all try that budgets are not accounting exercises. They are not Dhobi lists of announcements of individual small 10 crores, 50 crores, but statements of policy,
especially at such policy direction. I think Abhishek has been raising his hand to respond to. Abhishek, your response?
I must say I've heard Mr. Shourie, whom I respect very much, only in patches. There has been some indistinctness. I think I've got the gist of what he said. I just want to make 2 or 3 quick points. Point number 1, I think, to be fair, both the GAR review and relook and also the Vodafone issues had been started during the time of the previous finance minister. So there was a collective collegial approach where people thought that these need to be looked at, and that was because they wanted to make sure that the level playing field, investor confidence, global look at India did not at all get adversely affected. This is only the culmination or the continuation of what started earlier. Second, Mr. Chidambaram has himself in the last few months before the budget done roadshows to restore investor confidence. Thirdly, there is a very clear underlying approach in this budget, direct taxes, indirect taxes, elsewhere, of stability, certainty and continuity of regimes, rates, rules. No knee-jerk reactions. There has been some change, like a 10% surcharge or something in the indirect taxes, but basic structure, slabs, rates, he has bent over backwards to keep it stable, and that is to increase and maintain confidence. So I think that object is clearly there. Add to that, if we get success in the DTC and the GST, it will certainly make a holistic program of very clear rules, stability and confidence.
All right, Abhishek Manu Singhvi of the Congress there, but we're not quite sure what's in this budget that will help them win elections in 2014. Let's get back to the corporate reactions now. Siddharth Birla joins us from FICCI. Mr. Birla, your first reaction to the budget, some disappointments, but many believe it is a credible, responsible budget.
Yeah, I like the use of the word credible said by Mr. N.K. Singh. I think it's a budget that was made with the feet on the ground, and FICCI's reaction has been that it's a responsible budget, both on the spending side as well as on the revenue side. I mean, we have a set of circumstances that we cannot run away from. So if we look at those set of circumstances, what is the best kind of thing we can do to promote stability? We think that this budget has not really rocked the boat in any significant fashion. I think it is also important that it has flagged off in number of issues, some of which are socio-economic, some of which are more towards the minority, whether we could call it an indication for healthcare, education, women's empowerment, foreign investment. I think a huge amount has been touched in the budget speech. A huge amount of subjects have been touched in the budget speech. One, of course, has to wait for the actual fine print to see if there are any shocks in there. But from what we have heard so far, I think it seems to signal stability. He has been very, very forthright about not wanting to disturb the stability on the revenue side, on the direct taxation side. Personally, I think he did not even mince any words. He came directly to the subject, directly to the point. So I think our reaction is basically positive. It signals growth. It signals financial discipline. And the most important thing is that without the growth, we are never going to be able to provide employment for our young people who join the workforce in the next 5 years.
Alright, the one reaction we keep hearing from India Inc. is that he hasn't rocked the boat, there is stability, no negative surprises, and there's a sigh of relief out there just with that. So that just tells you how low expectations have now become with regard to budgets. We don't want negative surprises, we don't want the boat being rocked. I think Mr. Birla has a quick point to make. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I think it's not a question of only negative surprises. I think he's signaled a lot of positivity. And obviously when our growth has fallen to 5 and something percent, we need to signal positivity. The economic surveys suggest that we could be higher than 6% in the coming year. So maybe we bottomed out. I think we need to encourage investments, and really speaking, India needs to get back on 8 to 9% growth. Otherwise, we are not going to be able to really do justice to our own country. So I think the positivity is signaled, yeah, and we need to build on it.
Okay, investment infrastructure. Clearly we're going to focus a lot more on that. We've also got Vinayak Chatterjee of Feedback Infrastructure and Mr. S. Chandelier of Eicher Motors joining us after a quick break. So don't go away. More and more captains of industry continue to join us with their reactions after a quick break.